They say kindness always begins at home, but I've learned some people save their kindness for strangers and their cruelty for those who raised them. I'm Eleanor, born in 1949 in Brighton, a seaside town in England. Back in my late 60s, during what should have been the happiest season of my life, I endured a Christmas humiliation I will never forget. I felt small, discarded, and replaced, but then something happened that shook me awake. Today, at 75, I'm finally sharing this because truth sets you free. If you're listening, drop your city below and remember to like and subscribe if my story touches you. Christmas lights sparkled in my living room, the scent of pine needles filling the air. My son, Adrian, and his new partner, Claudia, had promised a grand family celebration. I had baked fruitcake, hung garlands across the mantel, and wrapped modest gifts for them both. When they arrived, Adrian was all smiles, tall and proud, with Claudia clinging to his arm like she owned the air around him. She looked immaculate in her crimson dress, her blonde hair flowing like a river of gold, and her perfume filling the room before she even spoke. "Eleanor, you shouldn't have gone to all this trouble," Claudia said, her lips curving in a way that seemed half smile, half smirk. I brushed it off, determined to keep the peace. When the time for exchanging gifts came, Adrian wheeled out something from the driveway. My breath caught when I saw it, a gleaming black BMW with a red bow on top, shining brighter than the Christmas star. Claudia squealed, throwing her arms around him, tears in her eyes. £60,000. "Adrian, you've outdone yourself," she cried. Everyone clapped, neighbors peering through curtains to watch the scene. Then Adrian turned to me with a smaller package, wrapped in thin paper. "This one's for you, Mom," he said casually. I unwrapped it slowly, my fingers trembling, only to find a tiny piggy bank with exactly £3 coins inside. £3, Adrian?" I whispered, my throat tight. "It's symbolic," he said with a grin. "You always told me to save my pennies." I thought this was funny. Claudia burst into laughter, clapping her manicured hands as though it was the cleverest joke she'd ever heard. My heart stung like a slap across the face. I forced a smile, but inside I was crumbling. He gave Claudia a car worth more than my entire savings and me a measly £3. A symbol, he called it. A mockery, I thought. I set the piggy bank on the table and excused myself, hiding in the kitchen where tears blurred my vision. Later that evening, while tidying up, I picked up Claudia's designer purse she had carelessly left open on the sofa. Papers peeked out, and though I knew it wasn't right, something urged me to look. My hands shook as I unfolded the document's bank statements with balances so large they made my head spin. Claudia wasn't struggling, she was wealthy beyond measure. Alongside the papers lay blister packs of anxiety medication, the name Claudia Fisher printed in neat type. Confusion gnawed at me. Claudia had told everyone she was a lonely widow who'd lost everything. That was the story Adrian had repeated, saying she needed care and compassion. But the evidence in my hands screamed otherwise. The phone rang just then, and I answered quickly to compose myself. "Is this Eleanor Harper?" a male voice asked firmly. "This is Officer Daniels from the State Police. We're looking for a woman named Claudia Fisher. Her son, Benjamin Chin, reported her missing 3 months ago." My heart nearly stopped. Missing? Son? Claudia had sworn she had no family left. I glanced toward the dining room, where she and Adrian laughed over glasses of wine, as though nothing in the world could touch them. I ended the call quickly, my fingers gripping the receiver so tightly I thought it would snap. The pieces didn't fit unless Claudia was living under a mask, and Adrian was blinded by her charm. My gaze fell back to the piggy bank, those 3 mocking coins inside. In that moment, bitterness hardened into suspicion. My son wasn't just thoughtless, he was being dragged into something darker. And though humiliation burned in my chest, something colder stirred inside me, the will to uncover the truth. I couldn't sleep that night. The echo of Claudia's laughter lingered in the house long after they left, and the piggy bank sat on my mantel like a wound that wouldn't heal. I stared at it under the glow of the Christmas lights until dawn, knowing in my bones that something wasn't right. Humiliation had burned me yesterday, but now suspicion drove me forward. The next morning, with the house quiet, I decided to start with what I already had. I opened Claudia's forgotten purse again, this time determined to comb through every detail. Among the papers was a business card tucked inside a folded letter. My heart raced as I read the words, Benjamin Gin Barrister, specializing in elder law, London Chambers. On the back, hastily scribbled in blue ink, were the words, Mum, please call me. Stop running. I sank into my chair, clutching the card. Claudia wasn't a widow, wasn't destitute, and certainly wasn't alone. She had a son, a professional no less, begging her to stop whatever game she was playing. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Why was she here, draped over my son, smiling with her crocodile grin, while her own family searched for her? The phone rang again around midday. This time it was Benjamin's secretary. Her tone was polite but urgent. Mrs. Harper, we've traced Claudia's phone activity. Records show she's been in Brighton since September. She hasn't contacted her son once. We are deeply concerned. Brighton? I repeated, my voice trembling. She's been living here under my nose? Yes, the woman confirmed. Please, if you see her, do not alert her immediately. Call us first. We fear she's exploiting vulnerable individuals. Exploiting. The word struck me like a hammer. That evening, Adrian came by alone, his face drawn and weary. He sat heavily on the sofa, avoiding my eyes. Mum, I need to tell you something, he muttered. Claudia. She's been advising us. She says we've been handling money wrong. Ashley, he stopped himself quickly, as though naming his ex-wife still hurt. We're drowning, Mum. The mortgage, the debts. I took out a second loan to buy her that car. She said it would prove how serious I am about her advice. My chest tightened. A second mortgage, Adrian? You mortgaged your future for a car she didn't even need. She promised to help, he said defensively, though his shoulders sagged. She has connections, strategies. She says if we follow her lead, we'll rebuild everything. I wanted to shout, to shake him until the blindness fell from his eyes, but anger only widened the gulf between us. I took a slow breath. Adrian, she isn't what she claims to be. His head snapped up, his voice sharp. Don't start, Mum. She's the only one who's stood by me since everything fell apart. I held my tongue, but later, when he left, I dug through my own documents. A sinking feeling turned to icy horror when I found something wedged between the pages of my will, forged papers granting Adrian power of attorney. My signature, replicated almost perfectly, but not mine. I sat frozen, the world tilting around me. Someone had been in my study, rifling through my life. Someone had plans to strip me of everything. I wasted no time. The next day I went straight to my solicitor, Mr. Lawson, a kind man who'd handled my affairs for years. He examined the papers with a grim expression. These are sophisticated forgeries, he said, tapping the documents. But still forgeries. We'll file a correction immediately and put safeguards in place. Eleanor, you must understand someone is trying to defraud you. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me, heavier than anything I'd felt before. My son, tangled in Claudia's schemes, was willing to hand over my life's work, my home, my savings, my dignity to a woman he barely knew. That night, Claudia herself came to see me. She stood in my doorway with a smile that never reached her eyes, her perfume overpowering, her presence suffocating. Eleanor, I think it's time we talk seriously about your future, she said sweetly. My future? I asked, keeping my voice even though my heart thumped in my chest. Yes, she said, stepping inside uninvited. This house, it's beautiful but too much for you to manage at your age. I have associates who would buy it from you at an excellent price. You could rent it back and live comfortably, without the burden of ownership. I stared at her, every word sharpening into a blade aimed at me. So, you want me to sell my home to strangers, then pay to live here? She tilted her head. Think of it as simplifying your life. Adrian supports the idea. It's what's best for everyone. In that moment, the mask slipped, and I saw her for what she truly was, a predator, circling, waiting for the kill. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to remain calm. I'll think about it, I said softly. As soon as she left, I called Adrian, my voice shaking. Son, if you love me at all, listen. That woman is not who she says she is. She has a son. She is wealthy. She's been lying to you from the start. He sighed, weary. Mom, please stop. You're only making things harder. No, I whispered fiercely. She's making them harder. And I will prove it. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, formulating a plan. If Claudia wanted to play games with my life, I would play them better. She thought I was frail, old, and blind. She had no idea that decades of endurance had forged me into steel. The humiliation of the piggy bank had birthed suspicion, and suspicion had become certainty. Now certainty lit the spark of resolve. If she wanted a battle, she would get one. But the battleground would be mine. The days that followed were the longest of my life, every hour dripping with tension. Claudia moved through our lives like a queen certain of her reign, while Adrian floundered deeper in her shadow. But I was no longer the quiet mother, accepting scraps of respect. I had become the hunter, and she was my prey. I started by reaching out to Benjamin Chin, the son Claudia had abandoned. When he answered, his voice was cautious. Mrs. Harper, I can't thank you enough for contacting me. My mother has been deceiving people for years, but this is beyond anything I imagined. She has forged documents, Benjamin, I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled. She tried to gain control over my assets. I believe she's exploiting Adrian too. Silence hummed on the line, then a measured breath. We can build a case. But we'll need evidence of her words, her promises, her attempts to manipulate you. Can you give her enough rope to hang herself? I looked around my sitting room, the piggy bank still on the mantel, my humiliation turned into fuel. I can, I said firmly. So, I set the stage. With Mr. Lawson's help, I prepared false bank statements, carefully crafted to show I had far more wealth than reality. Millions in investments, properties abroad, accounts brimming with figures designed to make Claudia's greed salivate. Every page looked authentic, every seal genuine. Then I invited her to tea. She arrived in a tailored suit, her smile shark-like, her confidence dripping from every move. Adrian trailed behind, gaunt with stress, his eyes darting between us. I've been thinking about what you said, I began softly, sliding the folder of fake statements across the table. You're right. Perhaps I should simplify my life. I want you to see what I have, so you can advise me. Claudia's eyes glittered as she opened the file. I watched her pupils dilate, her breathing quicken. She leaned forward, her voice low and hungry. Eleanor, with this kind of wealth, we can do so much. There are investment opportunities, high-return schemes my associates manage. You'd be foolish not to seize them. Adrian shifted uncomfortably. Claudia, maybe we should. Quiet, darling, she snapped, not even glancing at him. Her attention was fixed entirely on me, like a hawk spotting prey. If you allow me to manage this for you, I can triple your returns in under a year. You'd never have to worry again. I sipped my tea calmly, though my heart thundered in my chest. And in exchange? A small commission, naturally, she said smoothly. Nothing compared to what you'll gain. You see, Adrian understands the value of trust. He proved it with the car. That's why I'm prepared to offer you opportunities one wouldn't give to anyone else. The mention of the car burned like salt in an open wound, but I forced myself to smile. You've been very generous, Claudia. But tell me, what about your son? Benjamin? Doesn't he advise people like me already? The teacup slipped in her hand, clattering against the saucer. For a moment, her mask cracked. You've spoken to him? I leaned forward, my voice firm. Yes. He knows where you are. He knows what you're doing. You are not a widow. You are not alone. And you will not have my home, my money, or my life. Adrian froze, staring at me in shock. Mom, what are you saying? Claudia's eyes blazed, fury replacing her charm. You foolish old woman. Do you think anyone will believe you? Adrian trusts me, not you. That was the cue. From the adjoining room, Mr. Lawson stepped forward, holding a small recorder that had captured every word of her promises. Benjamin himself followed, his presence commanding, his gaze fixed on his mother with a mixture of grief and resolve. Hello, Mother, he said coldly. It ends today. Claudia's face was drained of color. She stumbled back, searching for words, but the net had closed. The police, waiting just outside, entered swiftly, their voices firm and unyielding. The sight of handcuffs snapping around her wrists brought a surge of vindication I cannot describe. She screamed, cursed, pleaded, but it was over. Adrian stood frozen, his world collapsing before his eyes. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." His voice cracked, tears spilling freely. I touched his hand, my anger softening into sorrow. "You were blind, Adrian. But blindness can be cured. It's time you open your eyes." The trial moved quickly. With the recordings, the forged documents, and Benjamin's testimony, Claudia faced charges of elder fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and identity deception. She pled guilty, her empire of lies crumbling in the light of truth. The judge's gavel fell, sentencing her to years behind bars. In the aftermath, Adrian was a broken man. He sold the BMW, every penny going toward repairing his debts. Slowly, he began to rebuild, this time with humility instead of arrogance. We spent long evenings talking, mending the torn threads between us. It wasn't easy. Trust, once shattered, takes time to stitch back together, but for the first time in years, I saw the boy I had raised emerge from the shadow of deceit. As for me, I changed my will, leaving everything not to family, but to causes that mattered: charities for the elderly, shelters for the homeless, scholarships for children who had no one else. My life's work would not be squandered by greed, it would become a light for those in need. And when I think back to that Christmas night, the BMW shining in the driveway and the piggy bank mocking me on the table, I no longer feel shame. I feel gratitude. That insult lit the fire that saved me. Today, as I share my story, I hope you hear this truth. No matter your age, no matter your circumstances, never let anyone write your ending for you. Protect what you've built. Guard your dignity. And when betrayal comes, stand tall, because even the most broken heart can rise again. Like this video if my journey touched you, subscribe for more true stories, share it with friends who need strength, and comment on the lesson you've learned today. Moral lesson: trust is fragile, family can fail, but wisdom and courage build unbreakable walls of protection around the heart that refuses to surrender.